Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how wokeism and the dystopian nightmare that the globalists have inflicted on the Western world, how this can be stopped and defeated and repudiated. Now, I look at a number of, and I'm sure you all have seen these, where there's a current affairs or even a centre-right sort of talk or discussion panel where they lament the devastatingly damaging effects of woke and the globalist funded woke dystopia that's been forced upon us without our consent or agreement. But then they say, well, what can we do? Now, typically, if there are any suggestions, they're either blithe and rather silly, or they get caught up in the weeds, where they go down to the micro. Well, what we have to do is we have to stop the teachers in the junior schools using the climate change handbook that's made by the radical activists. And if we can stop that, then now, okay, I mean that is an issue, but that's not at the centre of the problem at all. Far from it. It's a outward manifestation of the problem. So we need to sort of come back to basics. But before I even get to that, all the central planks of the woke thing of the racism and the misogyny and the gender and the climate and the transphobia and Nazis everywhere, all this sort of stuff, white supremacy, all of this stuff, all of it is made up. None of it exists in reality. It's all invented. Now, if you've got a real social or societal problem, or issue that's causing pain and suffering, then you don't have to tell lies and lots of lies and humongous lies, endless grotesque untruths. You don't have to make things up. You can rely on facts, because the problem is so big and so bad that you've got so many facts that you can just use those facts and say, well, here, look, the problem is huge because of X and Y and Z and A and B and C, because you've got all those facts there, because the problem is so bad, you've got the facts. But this is not none of these things, none of the things that they're using to push wokeism, none of it, the racism, the misogyny, none of it, climate change, none of it is real. All of it is made up and relies exclusively on lies or massive exaggerations, or reclassifying of. So, for example, there was a it's not as big now, but it's a few years ago, there was this hysterical thing about rapes on college campuses, mainly in the US, but it was elsewhere as well. You could see it happening in Australia and Britain and Canada and so on. Now, were there any rapes on college camp? Now, the claim of the number of rapes was really the headline. So, I delved into one of these and managed to get the raw data. So they did two things. There were three rapes in the previous year that involved female college students. I don't think they were rapes. I think they were attempted rapes, but nonetheless, they just for the interest of ginning it up, they classified as a rape. But it turns out that none of these were committed by male college students. This was girls going out on the town, having a good time, partying and party drugs and getting drunk and so on. And they fell in with some local men in the town, but they weren't college students. But they omitted this very key fact. So it didn't happen on campus, and it didn't involve students. But the headline was college campus rape at epidemic proportions. 9 out of every 10 girls is being raped every fucking minute of every day. So they've got these insane headlines. So what they did, there were these three. And I think one was a rape, 2 were attempted, and then the police dropped the charges on the alleged rape due to lack of evidence. So in fact, there were 0 rapes. I mean, we need to just be quite clear about that. Or there were 3 alleged rapes, but they didn't portray it that way. They were rapes. That was it. Now, what they did is they multiplied that by 40. I don't know why. They just sort of rando came up with a number that I think they needed. I think they sat around the table and said, well, we need more than 100 rapes, otherwise it just isn't going to get traction as a wow, 100 rapes, holy fuck. So they came up with 120 rapes. That wasn't enough either. So they then expanded the definition of what was rape. So instead of rape being rape, threat of violence or use of violence, or I don't know, kidnapping someone, tying them up, giving them drugs or something, instead of that, they just expanded the definition and said that anybody who had an unpleasant dating experience, where maybe the guy was getting a bit handsy, but nothing happened beyond that, or they maybe started consensual intimate relations, but she decided halfway through to say stop or something, or the next day she wakes up and goes, holy crap, I think I had too much to drink last night. Did I really fuck that guy? That asshole. So they expanded the definition. So they came up with, I think 40% was the number. 40% of women, this is college campus girls, 40% of female students at the colleges are being raped or receiving serious or aggressive unwanted sexual attention. But they sort of framed it in a way that made it look like it was all rape, which in fact it wasn't. Politicians then frothed in the microphone. Women are being oppressed by these evil men. I'm a big hairy-chested He-Man politician. I've got huge kahunas and I'm going to protect those poor little girls. So you had that sort of, and then the media went into a frenzy and so on. Now, just looking at the people that compiled the information about rape, were all the angry lesbians in the gender studies department, who, if you go onto their section of the website, they say all consensual sex is rape. Ideologically, as they perceive it as rape. So this is the standard of proof that is put out there to say that we've got this huge societal problem. Rapes are everywhere, misogyny and climate change and fucking racism and so on. It's all invented. It's the Jussie Smollett sort of concept here of if there isn't examples of racism, let's just invent it. Let's even stage manage a racist incident. So that's what it is. So none of the woke stuff is legitimate. None of it. I mean, none of it. It relies completely on and depends completely on an endless array of grotesque untruths and ridiculous fantasy type inventions. So on that basis, it's not that hard to push back. You can expose the lies. Now, exposing lies, of course, is one thing, because if people are deeply ideologically committed to, well, the facts actually don't matter, because what we're talking about is a dialectic, like a conversation. What we're talking about is a dialectic of social power struggle. So whoever has the moral high ground has the power. So if we accept your view that accept your claim, your impeccably correct claim, that everything we're doing is based on lies, if we accept that, then we lose that moral power. So we can't accept that. So the issue, as they see it, is just a struggle for moral power. That's all it is. And if they have to tell lies, a fuckload of lies, a shitload of lies, to gain or achieve that moral power, then that's a good thing, because not only do they have moral power, they're denying you moral power. And denying you moral power is just as important as them having moral power. So denying you moral power, because they're denying moral power of the Nazis, the fascists. They're denying Hitler moral power, and so they cloak themselves in in fucking sainthood as a result. So how do you push back and stop? Well, I don't think arguing the facts is really going to achieve anything, because they're so ideologically brainwashed, and they're so of the view that the facts are irrelevant anyway, that it's the dialectic of social power that's where that's the real issue there. And again, if we got to tell lies and invent things to do, that's okay. Because a lot of people think Jussie Smollett in inventing that racist incident, he did nothing wrong, because he's only highlighting a social power dialectic that really does exist. The fact he's choreographing, stage managing, telling lies, telling untruths, that doesn't really matter, because he's still highlighting or showcasing the social power dialectic struggle, and therefore he's still doing a good thing, even though he's telling lies and making it up, and so on. So that's real. And you see this in the attitudes of specialist rape prosecutors. in the increasingly ideologically and politicized rape courts, where they take the view that if 10 innocent men get sent to prison, then it doesn't matter in order to get the one guilty one. That doesn't really matter, because the social power dialectic is that men have been oppressing women, and the act of copulation is an act of oppression. So really, even though they're kind of not directly criminal in the social power dialectic of things, they kind of still are criminals. Even though they didn't break the law, they're ideologically guilty. So it's okay if they go to prison. And that's kind of okay, because we ended up getting the one guy. So that's very much a widespread attitude they have. So let's come back to what we do to push back. Well, the first thing is to reintroduce merit in the school system. So, this is getting a higher quality of teacher. So merit is the pass or fail exam. No more affirmative action, just out with affirmative action, out with participation trophies, and bring in a merit system. So when a merit system applies, then you get a whole bunch of kids who are going to leave school at the age of 15 because they can't cut it, they can't hack it. And now they're those, well, they don't get their junior high school diploma. Well, fine, okay. But that's still, the diploma is for people that reach a certain standard of educational achievement or excellence. So if those kids can't cut it in a strictly pass or fail merit system, okay, that's going to create, there's going to have a body of people out there who don't have a higher education, but that's okay, because they can go into trade or other jobs or something like that. We shouldn't see it as a social stigma. It's not, you did or didn't pass the exams. So a whole bunch. Now, a lot of those kids, in fact, nearly all of those kids, are going through high school to junior high school, senior high school, and going into college to do bullshit like African American studies or peace studies or lesbian studies. And this is the core. This is the hard core of the activists. And in order to create classes for these kids, they're in turn employing other activists as faculty members. And because they've got those kids there, they then have to have diversity, equity, and inclusion departments and black, lesbian, HR officers and so on. So a massive bureaucracy builds up just to cater for these kids. They should never be in fucking college anyway. So just reintroducing merit, not only teacher training, teacher selection, kids getting through high school, so that the numbers going to university would fall drastically. And so they should. Only those who are the brightest kids, assuming they want to go to college, only the brightest kids should be going to college to further their education and become, again, using excellence as the standard of outcome. So that would radically alter the landscape. Consider all the students that are in law studies as an example. The vast majority of those are just out and out activists, with IQs of 90. They'd never make it into the fucking university, or certainly not into law. The days, when I did the university graduation exam, the standards for law were quite high. Only a smallish number of kids actually graduated to university, and again, only a smallish number of those were considered to be good enough to do law. I mean, law wasn't that far behind medicine, as I recall. I think it was, you had to get, I'm going off the top of my head here, but I think you had to get 80% plus in the graduation exams, plural, to make it into medicine. And I think it was, I think, like, say 70, 68 or 70, something, somewhere high 60s to make it into law and so on. So anyway, that because once you have high achieving people doing these courses, then the chances are that the vast majority of those will be focused on their studies and on facts, not ideological nonsense, but fact. Some will still be ideological fanatics, fine. That will always be the case, but there'll always be a very small minority once you get into that. And then all those activist professors and teachers and hangers-on and flunkies, they're all then out of a job. And similarly, once you have merit coming through the system, then all you have to do is outlaw. For example, there's a law outlaw discrimination against white people, or against any race, including white people, then that would knock out a vast sort of army of people that are out there, activists that are out there hating on white folks and discriminating against them in employment and promotions and so on. It would also make affirmative action illegal, and so that would stop. If it was clearly illegal, so it would change. Just those things alone, and we're only looking at moving to a merit-based system, getting rid of the affirmative action and the participation trophy mentality, and to make racism and any discrimination against white people illegal. That's all you have to do. It's not a big. Notice that no Western government, not one, has made it illegal to discriminate against white people. Every other group, it's illegal to do it, and you'll have the human rights departments. You'll have a gaggle of NGOs screaming after you down the street after you. But if you discriminate against white people, nothing happens to you. Nothing happens. Not one government minister or not government official. No one gets up and says, "Hey, that's wrong. Isn't all racism wrong?" Because in the power dialectic of the woke people, given that supposedly straight white males are at the apex of the power pyramid, the dialectical social power pyramid that they've ideologically concocted, then you can't discriminate against people at the very top. But it's an ideological piece of utter arrant fucking nonsense. So there are a few just minor. Notice again, no Western government. The Western government that's completely made up of straight white people. Still, they don't legislate to say that discrimination against white people or any race, should be illegal, purely based on the color of their skin. To be straight is effectively to be a Nazi, whereas if you're trans, you're suddenly a saint. That's insane. So this stuff could be very, very easily dealt with at the parliamentary level. In fact, it could be done administratively. You wouldn't need a vote. It could be done just administratively, these things. So there are lots of levers and opportunities to do this. So once you disarm these people, once they can't pour hatred on white people, once they can't put their activists into the universities and the high schools and so on, then the NGOs that are the activist NGOs that are very prominent in pushing the globalist agenda, they're all registered as charities. Don't allow them to be charities. You're not a fucking charity. You're a bunch of activists, pushing a hardline activism while you're accepting activist money and activist instructions from the likes of the George Soroses and so on. So that could be stopped. So again, it won't take much to impede or stop or repudiate or push back on this. And so these things are easily available and accessible, I believe, to stop the insanity of wokeism and to remove these low IQ, 2-bit, useless, idiotic, insane flunkies, get them off the front pages and get them off get them out of the universities and so on. I've come across sort of activist kids who are not necessarily filled with malice or anything, but I come across activist kids. But as soon as they have responsibility of paying the bills and finding the job and paying their way through life and having to be responsible, then their activism, they don't have time for a lot of the activism, but their activism drops away fairly quickly. As a client, I think I've mentioned a few times, there's a climate activist kid across the road, and his parents said the only way that they can get him to stop putting on the air conditioning and running it sort of indiscriminately for the whole, because it's quite a large house, the whole house. They've told him, look, just do the section that your room is in, but he wants to heat or cool the whole house with the air conditioning, and it's costing the fortune in electricity. So they've decided, okay, you can your food and your room and board and all that's free, but you have to pay the power bill. That we'll even give you a car, but we have to pay the power bill. So as soon as the first bill came in, he suddenly became very, very conscious of saving electricity and being responsible and so on. Just one electricity bill is all it took for him to suddenly become a responsible citizen. And similarly, he's changed his views on, or modified them, softened them, I think might be he softened his views on climate change and things like that, and also taken a different view to personal responsibility. For example, if I'd say to him a few months ago, or 6 months ago, whenever, where you're driving a fossil fuel driven motor vehicle to get to the stuff you've got is made of plastic, fossil fuels, your mobile phone, fossil fuel, and so on and so forth. He would sort of dismiss that as the nonsense from some old, granddad, some Nazi granddad or something. I go, yeah, why don't you fuck off, you old Nazi? Do you like Hitler? Do you? That type of thing. Now it's quite different. Just that one electricity bill having to pay has really changed his views, and he's taking different attitudes now. So I don't think I'll go to that demonstration. I don't want to spend the money on the petrol, or I don't want to burn the fossil fuels and getting there. So he's taking a different view, and that was one electricity bill that got that. So think about the difference in attitude of all these activists. If they're out there having to lead their own lives and pay their own bills and so on, when they haven't been brought through a non-meritorious, particularly senior high school and college. So these are just some, and I could go on here, but these are just some of the things that we can do. I just don't think any of the globalist-controlled Western governments will do those things. They're under instructions not to do those things. They're under instructions from the globalists to create social division, and they're going about it quite aggressively. You've been a Tacitus today. You're a Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.